In this video, I'm going to react to the story of Pat Tillman. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. This is the place where I react to music, media, sports, anime, anything related to popular culture. I'll watch it with an open mind and give you my 100% honest reaction to it. And if you could please hit that like button early, I'll really appreciate it. And if you could please hit that like button early, I'd really appreciate it. Now this should be genuinely interesting because Pat Tillman is a name that I've heard of in passing and online like a few times, but I don't really know much about him other than the fact that I believe he played in the NFL very briefly, and I think he left to join the army. Yeah, and I think he might have passed away. He might have maybe been killed in action. I think, you know, if that's the case, it's quite a tragic story, but, you know, just for the sake of accuracy, I thought, you know, this would be a good video to react to, just to kind of really tell the whole story, what actually happened, because I'm sure there must be so much more to it than the little that I know. So when this video came up, when I found this, I thought, yeah, this, you know, this channel does a really good job of sort of, you know, tackling quite like complex football related stories and making them, you know, really digestible. So I thought, yeah, let's do this one today. So let's go. This is going to be me reacting to the story of Pat Tillman. Let's do it.
Will people see me as an honest man, a hard-working man, a family man, and a good man? Can I become the man I envision? Is vision and follow-through enough? How important is talent and blind luck? There are no true answers, just shades of gray, coincidence, and circumstance. Pat Tillman.
Very poignant.
Loyalty, respect, integrity. Pat Tillman, an NFL player and an Army Ranger, embodied those three words and any other word that describes honor interchangeably. Pat was most loyal to his country, but did his own nation and its military leaders turn their back on him, leading to his untimely death?
Really?
There are a few storylines of the post 9/11 time period that have been considered more disgraceful towards the military than how Pat Tillman's death while in combat was handled, along with how the Tillman family was treated as they searched for the whole truth behind how Pat Tillman died in battle.
Oh boy.
Today we discuss the life and career of Pat Tillman, one of the most remarkable come-from-behind stories in NFL history that ended in absolute tragedy and an even bigger mystery. Now, before we get to the content, guys, I wanted to give you a little heads up. A lot of these videos, Pat Tillman stood at 5'11", just under 200 pounds, born and raised in Northern California, son to Pat Sr., a lawyer, and Mary, a special education teacher, where he led the Leland High School football team to a Central Coast Division I championship. Pat was a linebacker who also had a love for literature. His stature was small for the specific football position of linebacker.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 5'11" and 200 pounds seems small for a linebacker. I would have thought maybe 6'1", 6'2", 220 to 230 would be about that. Would be about the range.
But good enough to earn the last defensive scholarship spot from Arizona State University.
Awesome.
Tillman came into Tempe with a slightly shaggy, sandy California hairstyle, an anvil jaw, and although still deemed undersized in college, he excelled at his position and as a team leader for the Sun Devils. Pat learned playbooks and opposing offensive schemes quickly, and he could tackle the fastest special teams returner, but he also enjoyed debating about religion, politics, and other scholarly topics, which is uncharacteristic of a Division I football player. Pat underwent shoulder surgery.
So he had, you know, brains as well as brawn. Good to see.
After his freshman year, but rehabbed quickly to make 47 tackles in his sophomore season, appearing as a top reserve and not just on special teams. During his junior year in 1997, Tillman had decided to shave his head and matured into a respected leader of his team. He started 11 games and led ASU to the Rose Bowl during an undefeated season while also earning Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year.
Wow.
Former ASU teammate Jeremy Stats said, although Tillman was only 5'10" or 5'11" and 200 pounds, he played like he was 260 pounds. He wasn't the fastest player on the team, but he played the game smart. He wasn't going to chase you from behind, but he would use angles and leverage and out-pursue you by playing the game smart. During his senior year, Pat led the team in tackles, was named MVP, second-team All-American, and completed a career that would be good enough for a future induction.
He sat that guy down.
Into the College Football Hall of Fame. Pat was what a student athlete aspired to be, earning numerous academic honors and completing his degree in just 3.5 years with a 3.85 GPA.
Nice.
He was selected in the 1998 NFL Draft to the Arizona Cardinals with their 7th round pick, 226th overall. Extremely talented, but considered too small to be a linebacker in the NFL, Tillman moved to the safety position. And Pat made a positive impact right away by starting 10 out of 16 games as a rookie while also pursuing a master's degree in history.
Wow.
In 2000, he was named Sporting News.
So he really, education was just a massive thing to Pat. He really valued it and enjoyed it. It's great to see.
NFL All-Pro with 155 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 9 pass deflections, and an interception that he took back for 30 yards. Pat was without a doubt a late draft gem and an NFL star, but still the unique Pat as he turned down a $9 million contract from the St. Louis Rams to stay loyal to the small market, mediocre Arizona Cardinals and pushed himself in another direction while still on a football roster. Pat Tillman trained and ran a marathon during that offseason, and then the following year set his goal even higher by completing the Blackwater Eagleman Triathlon in Maryland, which was a half Ironman event that served as a qualifier for the legendary Hawaiian Ironman.
But wouldn't he have had to lose a ton of mass to, compete in these events? Usually, endurance events like this, any kind of excessive muscle, you kind of try and shed that, right? So wouldn't that have had a detrimental effect on his football career?
And why was he competing in an endurance event just a few months after he had 224 tackles for the Arizona Cardinals? What was his rationale for such a difficult endeavor while other NFL players were spending their vacation time laying on the beach? Pat said it was just for the challenge. In the beginning of the 2001 NFL season, the world would change drastically for Americans following the September 11th terror attacks. Pat Tillman watched the events unfold in the Arizona Cardinals media room on that Tuesday morning, and shortly after the attacks, Tillman, a reflective man who used to climb light posts in college to sit, view the landscape, and meditate, told a reporter,
my great-grandfather was at Pearl Harbor, and a lot of my family has gone and fought in wars, and I really haven't done a damn thing as far as laying myself on the line like that, and so I have a great deal of respect for those that have and what the flag stands for.
In Pat's mind, he was ready to do something bigger than the NFL. He was ready to pursue a career that would drastically change his life and unfortunately end his life far too soon. Pat played the remaining games of that season with a heavy mind and heart. 8 months after the Twin Towers fell, and shortly after returning home from his honeymoon, Pat Tillman turned down a $3.6 million NFL contract from the Arizona Cardinals, traded his cleats and his number 40 jersey in for combat boots by enlisting in the U.S. Army alongside his brother Kevin.
Wow. I mean, there are very, very, very few people who would do what Pat did. Very few. That's amazing. That's incredible. He turned down an NFL contract worth millions, to join the Army. Man.
The duo committed themselves to a 3-year term as Army Airborne Rangers, a job that was just as dangerous as it was mentally and physically demanding. Pat Tillman instantaneously became the icon of patriotism. Secretary of State Donald Rumsfeld even sent him a personal note commending his bravery. The government was giddy that his name and testimony would promote the war on terror, which would hopefully conjure up future recruits. However, Tillman, once out of a football uniform and into desert camo, immediately stopped talking to the media. He didn't want this to be about him or his sacrifices. Pat Tillman didn't enlist because he felt an overwhelming rush of patriotism fall over him. He didn't seek to be revered as an athlete turned hero. Representing the American flag was in his bloodline. Pat understood the freedom that these men from his family and countless other men and women who had served in the military had given him, the freedom to be who he wanted to be. Pat and Kevin's first deployment came in 2003 to Iraq to support Operation Iraqi Freedom. Tillman had been known to be vocal against the Iraqi war, but he honorably fulfilled his duty that he signed up for. During the Freedom Mission, Pat and Kevin served as important backups in freeing Jessica Lynch. It was found in Tillman's journal that he wrote regarding the buildup of forces around the Lynch rescue was proposed to be a big public relations stunt. Little did he know that a year later, there may have been another stunt conducted in which he would be the center focal point. After returning home for a short time,
this man clearly had, great intellect. I mean, yeah, it's such a shame that things turned out the way they did, because he seemed to have a lot of integrity too,
In 2004, the Tillman brothers were deployed to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom. The duo was located in the eastern part of the country, near coast, in an operation called Mountain Storm. It was the evening of April 22nd, 2004. The sun was setting and 27-year-old Pat Tillman would soon take his last breath. According to first reports, there was suddenly an ambush with Pat providing covering fire for fellow soldiers as they escaped from the Rocky Canyon. That ambush led to the tragic death of Pat Tillman and an Afghan contractor in Pat's unit, who was donned in an American uniform, and a fellow radio operator was wounded. Pat's brother Kevin was in another vehicle behind his brother just down the road, but heard gunfire and was soon told that Pat had been killed. The story Kevin was given at the time was that Pat died while stepping out of a vehicle confronting enemy troops. Kevin was quickly flown back to Bagram Air Base and a short time later accompanied his brother's remains back to the United States. The first official report from the military—
Man, I can't imagine the pain his brother went through.
regarding Tillman's death read, he ordered his team to dismount, then maneuvered the Rangers up a hill near the enemy's location. Tillman directed his team into firing position and personally provided suppressive fire. Through the firing, Tillman's voice was heard issuing commands to take the fight to the enemy forces.
This gave his brothers in the downed vehicle time to move off that target.
Man.
He directly saved their lives with that move.
Immediately following Pat Tillman's death, messy events unfolded that would cause his family and friends to become perplexed and filled with a sense of uneasiness in the information that they were provided. Evidence was destroyed, items such as Pat's uniform, equipment, and notebook, amongst other personal belongings that would have been crucial to an investigation. His family noted in future testimony that his autopsy did not take place according to regulation. The documentation read completely wrong in regards to details about Pat. For example, a gold ring was listed as the wedding band on Pat's left hand when his family and friends knew that Pat wore a platinum ring. In addition, the field hospital report was found to be fabricated and listed.
But why? Why the inconsistencies here? It doesn't seem like there doesn't seem like any real incentive to give false information from how Pat died. I don't understand.
Were various accounts of what happened the moments that followed Pat being peppered with gunfire. Accounts such as whether or not CPR took place, where and how he was transported following the ambush, and specifically, how and where the bullets hit him. But wait, it gets even crazier. Because it was only days after the incident when top officials from the military were aware that Tillman's death was due to friendly fire. On April 29th, Major General Stanley McChrystal, who served as commander of the Rangers Task Force in Afghanistan along with being the head of Joint Special Operations Command, sent a memo to John Abizade, the chief of U.S. Central Command, telling him to warn everyone all the way up to the President of the United States, George W. Bush, that an investigation will find that it is highly possible that Corporal Tillman was killed by friendly fire. I felt that it was essential that you receive this information as soon as we detected it in order to preclude any unknowing statements by our country's leaders, which might cause public embarrassment if the circumstances of Corporal Tillman's death become public. There was no note in the memo stating that the truth should be told, but only that unknowing statements may cause public embarrassment. Thus, the military attempted to keep the friendly fire discovery quiet. Lieutenant General Stanley McChrystal presented the Silver Star posthumously to Tillman on national television, which is considered to be the third highest military combat decoration, all while giving the account of Tillman's last moments, including the words, "in the line of devastating enemy fire," which turns out was a blatant lie. Why did they, the US military, whose oath include the words that they will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same, withhold the truth regarding the incident for 4 more weeks? Perhaps it was because that storyline, the truth, didn't fit the real American hero script of professional athlete turned army soldier who perished a hero all while fighting off the evil enemy. Pat Tillman's family wasn't going to let the United States pull the wool over their eyes and knew.
Man, that is quite disappointing, you know. Why lie? You know, why lie? It's just not, you know, it's just not the way things should be done.
And knew shortly after the incident that there was far more to the story. His mother, Mary Tillman, said to Sports Illustrated that they attached themselves to his virtue and then threw him under the bus. They had no regard for him as a person. He'd hate to be used for a lie. "I'm not stopping." Mary became vocal in that there was more to the story. She agreed to talk to whatever media outlet would listen, and many of them were interested. She truly believed that there was a conspiracy behind her son's death. She recounted on ESPN Radio's Dan Patrick show, saying, "It became very obvious very early on that they were lying to us. They were only telling one side of the story. They weren't telling the other side." On the Friday before Memorial Day, 5 weeks after the incident, the military admitted that Pat Tillman was killed by friendly fire.
The investigation results indicate that Corporal Tillman probably died as a result of friendly fire.
Mary Tillman said to the BBC at the time, "This was a complete debacle on every level as far as I am concerned. They did not want that to come out. They used that 5 weeks, I believe, to kind of glorify the military, to try to use Pat as a recruiting instrument."
Which is exactly what he didn't want. This is why Pat, you know, did speak to the media, I imagine. This is what he did not want.
Years later, the Pentagon finally released a full report on the events surrounding Tillman's murder. His biological and platoon brother, Kevin, who was also an athlete, a minor league baseball player turned soldier, boldly stood before Congress saying the deception surrounding this case was an insult to the family, but more importantly, its primary purpose was to deceive a whole nation. We say these things with disappointment and sadness for our country. Once again, we have been used as props in a Pentagon public relations exercise. In more than 4,000 pages of documents, including 2,300 pages of testimony, there were shocking revelations that proved that there was perhaps more to the story. Information was uncovered from medical experts suggesting that Pat Tillman was shot at close range and not the 50 yards as initially listed. A theory emerged presenting the question if Pat Tillman was killed via fratricide or via an assassination. These medical experts found that the 3 bullet holes were so close together that experts stated that it was an M16 with American bullets, fired from around 10 yards away, not the M240 machine gun as listed in the report. The question came up of would it be possible to place 3 bullets into one of America's most revered soldiers during a blind ambush? On the contrary, as said before, the first report stated,
Surely not. Oh my God. No way. What?
First reports stated the gunfire took place from about 50 yards away. In football and combat, from 50 yards, you may not be able to see details, but you can certainly recognize a uniform. However, at 10 yards away, you can see many specifics of a person, including the embroidery on pocket flaps. Also, within those 2,300 pages, more particulars emerged, such as very few other soldiers being injured or even grazed by fire. Another thought-provoking note was that Pat Tillman told his comrade, who was also under fire, to shut up and stop sniveling. In addition, the 3-star general who withheld the truth regarding Tillman's death told investigators almost 70 times that his bad memory prevented him from remembering what had happened. That 3-star general was demoted, but not dismissed or forced to retire. The Army finally admitted it had violated its own regulations by waiting more than a month to tell the Tillman family that their son had died as a result of suspected friendly fire, but backpedaled, giving the excuse that they only did it because they were still gathering all of the facts.
Your statement was that I knew about the friendly fire. I knew that there was an investigation ongoing about the potential for friendly fire.
That goes for me too. That's exactly right.
And for me as well.
Okay.
In 2014, via a Los Angeles Times article, former Army Ranger Stephen Elliott gave his account from his side of within the opposite caravan from Tillman, the caravan of American soldiers who fired upon Tillman's group. The group was ultimately deemed responsible for the friendly fire. Elliott, who had never been in a gunfire fight before, said he followed the lead of his commander and fired at shadowy figures on a hillside. Those figures were Tillman, Brian O'Neill, a specialist who was uninjured by Tillman's side, and the Afghan contractor in their group. Elliott continued saying even if somebody else was identified through forensic science as to have fired the fatal shot, that doesn't change how I feel. I still fired on a friendly position, and that wouldn't change my sense of responsibility. To this day, Pat's family and many of his friends still believe that there is more to the story, and perhaps the full truth was never disclosed. Former Arizona State defensive back, NFL player, and friend of Pat Tillman, Jeremy Statt, who enlisted in the Marines in 2006 in honor of Tillman, stated to the BCC in 2014 that he wouldn't want to be remembered as this mythical unicorn that the American government made up to push their agenda. That's not who Pat was. A statue stands at an NFL stadium in Glendale, Arizona, and another statue has been erected at a Division I football field just miles away in Tempe. These statues are of Pat Tillman outfitted in a football uniform, not the military fatigues in which he gave his life. If you would ask anyone who truly knew Pat, they would have said he would hate those statues. That is because Pat Tillman was an unselfish, socially mindful, and politically aware guy who died serving his country. He was a loyal American who just happened to be a football player. Pat wouldn't want a statue in his honor. However, Pat would be the most proud and honored of the work done in his name via the Pat Tillman Foundation, which carries forward his legacy by giving military service members, veterans, and spouses who embody Pat's principles the educational tools and support to reach their fullest potential as leaders, no matter how they choose to serve. Thank you for watching our latest Dark Stories.
Wow, that was that was crazy. I mean, the story just kept getting more complex. More things were just coming to light. It definitely felt like, you know, there was more to that, you know, to that story. I do definitely kind of side with the Tillman family in the sense that they believe that there's probably more that was covered up. You know, it's such a tragedy, complete tragedy that a man of Pat Tillman's character, you know, that his life was ended so soon. Oh, real tragedy. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and keep throwing the recommendations my way. I know I say it all the time, but they genuinely help me out, because if I know you enjoyed watching something, I'll definitely enjoy reacting to it. So like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, keep throwing the recommendations, and I'll catch you in the next one.